Welcome to a brand new episode of Brewing with 50 bucks. This is the show where we take any commander, slap on a $50 budget, and we try to build a functional deck around it. My name is Stefan. I'm coming to you from the General Warfare headquarters. Yes, I know this is going to be the second video in 2 weeks, back to back, that are deck techs. And I did mention to you I try changing up every single week. I decided to do this spur of the moment since I've already I joined TikTok just recently. You can follow it on the screen right now. And basically, I decided to choose the commander at random this week. And today's commander is Vaevictis Asmadi the Dire, I should say. And we decided, you know what, let's slap on a $50 budget range on this. Let's see what we can do and make it super functional. And with that, let's get into our commander, shall we? All right, so Vaevictus Asmadi the Dire is a 6/6 for 3 and Jund, so 3 black, red, and green for a legendary Elder Dragon with flying. Whenever Vaevictus Asmadi the Dire attacks, for each player, choose target permanent that player controls. Those players sacrifice those permanents. Each player who sacrificed a permanent this way reveals the top card of their library, then puts it into the battlefield if it's a permanent card. It's a 6/6, and despite the fact that you have to pay 6 mana to get it out, this ability is very good, it's very replaceable, and especially the fact it gives you a lot of interaction to what you want to build. You can build this as an Aristocrats deck, you can build this as a Lands Matter deck. The way we're building it today is a mix of 2 different themes and strategies that most Vaevictus Asmadi players would build. So we're going to be combining a Primal Surge deck with a Lands Matter deck. So this way we're going to be filtering out all the lands in our deck, so that way we can filter out as many redundant cards in our deck as we can in order to get Primal Surge on the field, and that way we can basically win with our combo pieces. Yes, we are playing some combos in this deck, some combo strategies which I'll get to in just a moment. And as always, we're running this deck with a $50 price tag. This price tag includes the commander's price in it, excludes the basic land count, and has a $5 overage leniency. It just gives us a little bit of room to work with since most people can afford $5 extra to this deck list. Instead of having a breakdown of all the different themes for this deck, I do apologize in advance. We're going to be going the most mundane route with this. We're going to be going by creatures, enchantments, lands, and artifacts, the regular typing for these cards. And with this deck, we also have a small little challenge to work around. With this, we are only playing permanents. So there's no instants in this deck, and there's only 1 sorcery in this deck. And that sorcery is Primal Surge. With Vaevictus Asmadi, a Primal Surge is directly linked to this. For 10 mana, 8 green, for a sorcery, exile the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you do, repeat this process. Primal Surge is one of our main win cons since this gets all of our combo pieces on the field ultimately. And Primal Surge, you get to put your entire deck on the field. That's just an immediate scoop for everybody on the field, unless they're countering it. But high chances are you're going to be playing Primal Surge when nobody is going to be expecting it. So let's get started with our creatures. We are running 23 creatures in this deck. We're starting off with Acidic Slime. It's a 2/2 for 3 green, ooze with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. We are not running any instants or sorceries in this deck, so the only way we are going to be able to destroy any permanents our opponents are playing is by using either creatures or enchantments or artifacts. So Acidic Slime hits both artifacts, enchantments, and lands that our opponents are playing with. Next, we're going to be running Brutalizer Exarch. This is a fun little tutor in our card to get the creatures that we need, or if we're feeling a little fun, or if we're feeling doing some big moves, we can always put a non-creature permanent on the bottom of its owner's library. Next, we're running Dawntreader Elk. So Dawntreader Elk is extra ramp, getting you some basic lands on the battlefield and mitigating how many extra redundant cards you have left in your deck. Next, we're running Dragonlader Spire. With this, it's 6 mana for a spider with reach, and whenever an opponent casts a spell, you create a 1/1 green insect creature token. So with this, you're going to be getting some extra fodder for Vaevictus Asmadi to sacrifice and get the top cards of your library out on the field. Next, we're looking at Dryad Greenseeker. You get to look at the top card and put a land on the top of your deck onto your hand if there's a land on top of it. This way, you're getting your effective draws and you're mitigating how many basics you have left in your deck. Next, we're looking at Elves of Deep Shadow, Elvish Mystic, and Llanowar Elves. These are our mana elves, our mana dorks, basically. Delves of Deep Shadow allows you to tap for black instead of green. The rest are just green. And with Delves of Deep Shadow, it's one extra life to produce a black mana. Next, we are looking at Elvish Rejuvenator. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land from among them into the battlefield tapped and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. And so with this, you get to choose a land if you have it, or you just shuffle the top 5 cards of your deck into the bottom of your library. You get mitigate whatever redundancy you have there. Next, we are looking at Etali, Primal Storm. With Etali, you get to steal cards from your opponents, and you get to play them without paying their mana cost. It's a fun little card, especially with all the haste we have in this deck. It's just really, really funny. Next, we're taking a look at Farhaven Elf. This is an extra ramp. This is extra ramp in your deck, getting a basic onto the battlefield tapped. Next, we're looking at Garna, the Bloodflame. This has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you return to your hand all creature cards that were in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn, and other creatures you control have haste. So not only is this a haste enabler, but should Vaevictis Asmadi die in any way, shape, or form and go to the graveyard, you can cast Garna and put Vaevictis Asmadi back into your hand, and you're avoiding commander attacks as well. Next, we're looking at Kadama of the East Tree. So Kadama, I've already put as a commander in my very first Brewing with 50 bucks episode. You click the eye on the top right of your video right now. However, Kadama is a fun little combo card in this deck, and I will go through the combos at the end of the video. There will be some timestamps along with this, but for this instance, for Kadama, whenever you play any kind of permanent, you get to put a permanent from your hand with equal or less converted mana cost from your hand onto the field. So if you play something big, like a 6-mana thing, you can always drop an extra land on the field without having to occur the land limit count for your turn. Next, we're looking at Omnath, Locust of Rage. This is also a combo piece, and this is one of my very first commanders I've built in a competitive. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 5/5 green and red elemental token, and whenever Omnath or another elemental you control dies, it deals 3 damage to any target player. So with Omnath, you're creating bodies on the field so that way that they absorb all the shock and they can swing from your opponents attacking you, 1 and 2 for you to attack into your opponents. Next, we're looking at Rada, Heart of Keld. Rada, Heart of Keld. As long as your turn, Rada has first strike, you get to look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may play lands from the top of your library. At least you get to mitigate all the lands in your deck. The second ability for 4 green and red, getting +X/+X, where X is the number of lands you control until end of turn. That's just a game-ending strat right there. Next, we're looking at Rampaging Balos, another landfall card. This is when having trample, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. So, like Omnath and like Dragonlader Spider, Rampaging Balos allows you to create bodies for Vaevictis Asmadi, not only to sacrifice, but you also get to have some beef on the field so you can attack into your opponents with a lot of 4/4s. Next, we're looking at Reclamation Sage, another little removal card that we have in this deck, destroying artifacts or enchantments. Next, we're looking at Sepulchral Primordial. This has Intimidate, and when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you may put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So you get to steal creatures from your opponent's graveyards and put them onto your side of the field. Next, we're looking at Springbloom Druid, which is effectively Harrow on a creature, except then with this, you get to sacrifice a land when it comes to the battlefield, and you search up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Next, we're looking at Terracodon. When it enters, you destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents, and for each permanent destroyed this way, you create a 3/3 green elephant creature token. You can even destroy your own things and create more fodder for Vaevictis Asmadi to sacrifice, or you can just blow up your opponent's stuff altogether. Next, we're looking at Togo, Goblin Weaponsmith. This little guy creates rocks you get to throw at other people. I've already covered him a very, very little bit in my Commander overview for Commander Legends. Click on the eye on the top right now. And with Togo, it's another combo, a little combo piece. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, you just create a rock every single time. Next, we're looking at Wood Elves. Wood Elves is a staple card in green. You get to search your library for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped and shuffle your library. And lastly, Yavimaya Elder. Whenever it dies, you get to search for your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. And for 2, sacrifice Yavimaya Elder, draw a card. Next, we're going to take a look at our enchantments. We are running 21 enchantments in this deck. We're going to start off with Abundance. Whenever you would draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land and reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind and put it into your hand. Put all the other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in any order. So with this, most of the time you are going to be choosing non-land, since we're going to be taking all the lands that we have in our deck out and on the field. So Abundance, you are going to be mostly using non-land permanents. You're going to be choosing non-land cards. This way you get to filter all and have plays following each land that comes onto the battlefield. Next is Abundant Growth. I've covered this in my last deck tech, but Abundant Growth allows you to tap the land for any one color of mana you choose, and it comes into play, you get to draw a card. Next, we're looking at Aid from the Cowl. Aid from the Cowl, again, is from my Livio and Kadama deck list. However, this works in this deck as well, since at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, keep in mind, it's permanent you control. It's not token, anything, permanent altogether. Reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it onto the battlefield. So, like I said, 1% of our deck is a sorcery, aka Primal Surge. So Aid from the Cowl is going to be doing wonders for your deck. Every single permanent that you have in almost every single card in your deck is going to be put on the battlefield with Aid of the Cowl. Alpha Authority allows you to attach a target Vaevictis to give it hexproof and can't be blocked by more than one creature. This way, your opponents can't target it and they can't just chump block it. Next is Aspect of Mongoose. This is basically Shroud, and when Aspect is put into the graveyard from play, you return it to the owner's hand. So it's repeatable, and you get to repeatedly give whatever creature you desire Shroud. Next, we're going to be looking at Binding the Old Gods. So this is the only saga that we'll be running in this deck, and this is probably one of my favorite sagas to play, since the first one is immediately destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls. The second one is you get to ramp, search your library for a forest, put it onto the battlefield. And third is creatures you control getting Death Touch till end of turn. The third is kind of monotonous and it's kind of out of place. The first 2 are exactly what we need in this deck. We need removal and we need ramp. Next, we're looking at Cinder Vines. So this is one of our little Hate Bear stack cards that we run. So whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Cinder Vines deals 1 damage to that player, and you get to sacrifice and destroy a target artifact or enchantment, and it deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. So with Cinder Vines, you're basically going to be using this either as hate, or you're going to be using this as removal. Next, we're looking at Colossification. This is just a win con in and of itself. For 7 mana, with Colossification, you're giving target creature +20/+20. And when it comes to play, the small cost of this is you're tapping your enchanted creature. That being said, +20/+20 on a Vaevictis is game ending in 1 strike. Next is Dragon Breath, where enchanted creature has haste and fire breathing. So for a red, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And when a creature with converted mana cost 6 or greater enters the battlefield, you may return Dragon's Breath from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to that creature. That way, whenever Vaevictis dies with Dragon Breath on it and Dragon Breath in your graveyard, you replay Vaevictis, Dragon Breath comes back on the field attached to that creature in and of itself. Next is a card I never saw before. This is the first time I'm ever running this in any one of my decks. It's Emblem of the Warmind. Enchanted creature you control, creatures you control have haste. So it's an aura that gives all your creatures haste. And next is Fires the Yavimaya. It is another haste enabler. You're giving your creatures you control haste, and you sacrifice it to give target creature +2/+2 until end of turn. You're mostly going to be using this for its haste capabilities. That being said, you can also pump Vaevictis if you're within lethal range, if you really want. From Beyond is basically one of our only ways to generate tokens in enchantment form. And you get to put 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scions that allow you to use them for mana. And this way, this is not only fodder for Vaevictis, this is fodder for Aid from the Cowl as well. Garruk's Uprising basically gives all your creatures trample, and you get to draw a card for every creature that's power 4 or greater that enters the battlefield. Kander's Transformation allows you to draw a card, and enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power toughness 3/3. Colony Hell Expedition is one of the budget favorites for most land players. So with this, whenever a land comes to the battlefield, you put a quest counter on it and you remove 3 and sacrifice the expedition to search your library for up to 2 basics, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Market Festival is extra ramp, allowing you to enchant a land and basically add 2 mana of any combination of colors to your mana pool. Possibility Storm is another one of our tricky little stacks and chaos cards. Whenever a player casts a spell from their hand, that player exiles it and exiles cards from the top of their library until he or she exiles a card that shares a card type with it. And you have to cast it instead. So anytime your opponents are casting instants or sorceries or anything of the sort, you basically get to deal cards to the top, and they may not even get the cards that they want to play. And it's any spell that is affected, so permanents and spells and all together. Seal of Primordium is an extra removal spell for artifacts and enchantments. The Mending of Dominario allows you to return creatures from your graveyard and then return all lands that were from your grave from the battlefield. Warstorm Surge is another win con with all the tokens that we're creating with Omnath, with Rampaging Baloths, and the sort. With this, every time a creature enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So imagine comboing off with Warstorm Surge on the field. Infinite damage. And lastly, Wild Growth allows you to tap an enchanted land for an extra green. Next, we're going to take a look at our artifacts. We're going to start off with Crystal Ball. So for this, you get to scry 2, so you get to look the top 2 cards of your library and put any number of them on the bottom or put the rest in the top in any order. So this way you get to cipher your top draws, and you basically get to peek at the top, see what you want to draw, what you want a Vaevictis to put on the field and such. Next is Darksteel Pendant. You will look at the top and you may put, and it's always scry 1 basically. Druidic Satchel is basically a extra fodder in any real case. So this way, when you get to reveal the top card of your library for 2 mana. If it's a creature card, you create a green Sapperling 1/1 token. If it's a land, you put that land on the battlefield onto the battlefield under your control. And the last part of it is not necessary for this deck list. This way, you're either getting lands on the field or you're getting extra tokens and extra fodder for Vaevictis. Explorer's Scout allows you to, whenever you attack, you look at the top card of your library, and if it's a land, you put it into the battlefield tap. That way you're getting all of your lands that you possibly put on the field, from the top. Next, we're looking at the signets. Our 3 signets are Golgari Signet, Gruul Signet, and Rakdos Signet. You tap 1 mana to tap it for any combination of green, black, and red. Next is Hammer of Purphoros. Creatures you control have haste. This is just an extra haste enabler with an added thing to you creating a 3/3 golem to sacrifice a land. Most of the time, you're not going to be doing that. It's just going to be used for the haste abilities. Ichor Wellspring allows you to draw a card for any time it enters the battlefield or is put from the graveyard, so that way it has double effect with Vaevictis Asmadi. Mimic Vat is an amazing card, especially when your creatures die, like your non-token creatures, or any non-token creature dies. You can exile it, and then you get to create a token copy of it until end of turn for Vaevictis to use as sacrifice fodder. Mycosynth Wellspring is the same thing as Ichor Wellspring, except instead of it drawing you a card, you get to search your library for a basic and put it into your hand. Omen Machine is just pure chaos. Basically, players can't draw cards at the beginning of each player's draw step. That player exiles the top card of his or her library. If it's a land, the player puts it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, player casts it without paying its mana cost. So you're basically using a Vaevictis' ability without even having to pay for the card itself. Next is Seer's Lantern, where it taps for a colorless, tap 2 and tap it to scry 1. That way you get to look at the top card, filter your draws, and filter your hits, basically. Spine of Ishsa is one of the only cards in our deck that allows, I think the only card in our deck that allows you to destroy target permanent. And whenever it dies, you return the spine back to your owner's hand. So Vaevictis, every time you can just target the spine, comes back to your hand, and then just play it again afterwards for extra removal. And Wishclock Talisman is our only tutor in the deck. You get to use comes into play with 3 wish counters. Tap 1 and tap it to remove it, and search your library for a card and put it into your hand. And an opponent gains control of it. This way, you can use the Wishclaw once and then destroy it without your opponents allowing your opponents to tutor. We're looking at our 3 Planeswalkers right now, the first of which is Domri Anarcha Bolas. Creatures you control gets +1/+0, +1, add green or red, creature spells you cast this turn can't be countered, and the -2 is target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So Domri basically is used for the mana ability and for the fight mechanic. Creatures you control get +1/+0 is nice and all, it's just not going to be super necessary in the long run. Most of it is just going to be for its actual abilities, the mana or the fight ability. Samut is another haste enabler, and target creature gets +2/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. You get to scry 1. And Vivien, Champion of the Wilds, allowing you to cast your creatures with flash. So if you haven't noticed already, I'm a very big advocate for flash in every single deck. Vivien allows you to, gives you that option to give it flash. And basically, target creature gains vigilance and reach till end of turn for its +1. It's -2. You get to look at the top 3 cards. Your library, exile one of them face down and put the rest in the bottom. And you could cast it anytime. If it's a creature card, you could cast it as long as Vivien's on the field. And then we're going to take a look at our land count. We're running 36 lands, which includes both Blighted Woodlands and Myriad Landscape. Both of these allow you to search your library for 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse basically allow you to search for 1 basic, put into the play tap at the cost of sacrificing it. We're also running the 3 bounce lands, Rakdos Canarium, Golgari Rot Farm, and Gruul Turf. Jund Panorama allows you to tap it for colorless, or tap 1 and sacrifice it to search your library for a basic swamp, mountain, or forest and put it to the battlefield tapped. And the one tap land that taps for any color is Savage Lands. We're also running 11 forests, 8 mountains, and 8 swamps. So I mentioned before that this deck is running some combos. This is how the combos really work. So with this, you're gonna need 3 cards. You're gonna need 1 of your bounce lands. Let's just say Golgari Rot Farm in this case. You're gonna need Kodama of the East Tree, and you're gonna also need 1 of your Landfall Matters cards. So let's take Omnath for this case. So you have to start with Omnath on the field along with Kodama of the East Tree. You must not have played a land that turn. So let's play the Golgari Rot Farm. It'll trigger, Kodama will trigger. So we'll have the Kodama, then the Golgari Rot Farm will trigger, you bounce a land from your hand. That way you're getting it back into your hand, and then your Landfall Matter card will come in. You create a 5/5 green-red elemental, that'll trigger Kodama 1 more time, and then you could put a permanent with equal or less converted mana cost. So in this case, the elemental itself is 0. So we get to put a card that has mana cost 0. What costs 0 in our deck? The Rot Farm. So you get to play it over, create infinite tokens, infinite landfall triggers, and you're basically getting infinite either elementals with Omnath, infinite rampaging Baloths, green beast tokens, or infinite rocks with Togo. And that's how you build a Land Matters Exchanging Dragon. And as customary on this channel, with our budget of $50, including the price of the commander, which is roughly around $3, and excluding the basic lands price to this, we come up with a total of $50.96, which is still within our budget range, since this is just about $1 and most people can functionally build this deck with $1 expense. And yeah, that's about it. So let's get into our pros and cons of the deck. Okay, so let's take a look at some pros and cons for this deck. Going off with our pros first, this is a very, very fast ramping deck. This way you're ramping really hard. You're getting Vaevictis as early as turn 4 in some cases. I play testing this deck, I've been able to get, you have a lot of good options for win cons with Primal Surge and the combo cards that we have on the field. With all the combo cards that we have in our deck, we're able to combo off easily. You have a lot of consistent interactions between cards. This way, it's basically just a easy deck to build with consistent goals. You're trying to get a lot of lands on the field. You're trying to combo off with infinite rocks, with infinite creatures. You're trying to swing out with everything. There's a lot of interaction, especially with Scry. You have a lot of cards that allow you to Scry as well. Some cons to playing this deck is that board wipes, and especially land wipes, will set us back significantly, especially the land wipes. Board wipes, we can kind of recover pretty easily, considering we're allowed to get a lot of cards back from our graveyards with certain cards in our deck. Land wipes will just hurt us very, very much. It's not always reliable to draw our win cons or even Primal Surge, since a lot of the times we're going to be getting a lot of cards that we're basically playing off the top card of our library, and we are also relying on getting permanents instead of hitting Primal Surge with the top cards. The only other thing also is there's no instant interactions. So the only way we're able to interact is with Vivian, and most of the time Vivian is a prime target to get blown up or prime target to get swung at. And like I mentioned to you at the beginning of this video, there is no instance and only one sorcery in this deck, so we don't have a lot of instant interactions with other players. We don't have any responses to our players altogether. And some notable out-of-budget upgrades for this deck that I would very highly consider putting in if you're going to be going over the $50 budget range will be Obnixis the Fallen. This is an extra landfall matters trigger. With this is just instant win with Kadama of the East Tree and one of the bounce lands as well, since all your opponents are taking 3 life. Tireless Tracker is another one where it'll make you infinite clues. If that betrays is just amazing, especially when you're making Vaevictis sacrifice your opponent's stuff. You get that stuff with If That Betrays. Finale Devastation is just an extra win con. It's basically letting you tutor up your deck for any creature, and you get to have your creatures get +X and trample till end of turn. And finally, Nature's Will. Anytime Vaevictis connects, you tap all lands your opponents control, and you untap all of your lands. It's basically sort of Feast and Famine, except just for an enchantment version of it. And that's going to be it for today's video. I'd like to know from you guys, what do you guys think of this deck? Is this a deck you'd like to run, or would you have any suggestions regarding what the next deck tech should be, what the next video should be? Please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video, give it a subscribe, and hit that bell icon. That's the only way you're going to be notified of every future video coming out of this channel. I post every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That may change in the next little bit. Considering my schedule, I will keep you guys posted once I know my schedule full time. And with that, every video will have a premiere attached to it, so you'll be notified when the video gets uploaded, but the video will be released and will be shown at 11 a.m. each Friday morning. And don't forget, our socials are now our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, and now, as of now, our TikTok. So go follow those. That's the way you're going to be notified of every future upload, what the schedule is going to be like, and any news and information regarding the channel. Now follow us on our socials. We now have a TikTok page. So officially we have a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, and our TikTok. You'll be notified from each one of those socials when the videos come out, any news regarding any future uploads and schedule changes. And that's the best way you can get in touch with me if you want to suggest any future deck techs, any future videos coming out of the channel. And if you want to play a game with us virtually, that's the best way to get in touch with us. That's going to be it for today's, guys. I've been Stefan from General Warfare. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next Friday. And so until then, cheers, everybody.